Welcome to eDay4. We are going to continue with quadratic formula today. Before we do so, I wanted to review rounding. If you would like to do a optional extra practice in IXL, you can go to IXL G7 for 5th grade. This will give you a little extra practice on rounding if you want to confirm your understanding. The first thing we're going to do is round to the tenths place. The tenths place is 1 decimal place, and that's 1 decimal place after to the right of the decimal. Then what we're going to do is look at our hundredths place. When we look at our hundredths place, we have to decide 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 will stay the same. And then if it is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we end up rounding up. And when I say we round up, it means we cross off all of this and we decide what's happening to the tenths place. Do we stay the same or do we round up? So in this problem, you need to find where the tenths place is. And then you look at the number after it. Anything beyond that, we don't care. You can erase it or scribble it out. So now we have to look at this number, 4.56. The 6 means we're going to round up. That implies that the 5 will get rounded up. This 6 will no longer be there, but the 5 will get rounded up to a 6. The next one, it still wants us to do the tenths place, and so we're going to look at the number right behind the tenths place, which is the hundredths place. Everything else behind it does not matter. You can erase it. The 3 means that we're going to stay the same. And what stays the same is everything in front of that green 3. And that means we can just cross off this 3 and the number will stay the same. In this next part, they want us to round to the hundredths place. That is 2 decimal places. So if we find where our hundredths place is, that means when we're deciding how to round, we are going to be looking at the number after the hundredths place, which is the thousandths place. And when we look here, we're going to say 0 through 4 stays the same. And then 5 through 9 will round up. And when I say we're going to stay the same or round up, it's going to be everything in front of that thousandths place. So first thing you want to do is find where your hundredths place is, and that's our 8. And then we look at the number after the 8, which is a 9. 9 implies we're going to round up. So I'm going to cross this 9 off, and that means this number in front, the 7.18, is going to round up. And that means the 8 right here is going to round up to a 9, 7.19. The next one, if we have, if we're going to be looking at the hundredths place, we look at the number after. 1 means we stay the same. And we don't do anything with this 1, it kind of just disappears, but that means the rest of this problem right here will stay the same. This last one says to the whole number. That means we want no decimal places. And so the whole number means everything to the left of the decimal place, and then we look at the tenths, that first decimal place, and decide what's happening, and everything else beyond does not matter. So first we're going to look at this 4. Everything beyond does not matter. So if we want to round to the nearest whole number, we're looking to say we don't want to have any decimals. And if this is a 4, that means we stay the same. We basically cross off this 4, and that 15 stays the same. This next one, if we want to decide what we're rounding to for the whole number, we are going to only look at that 9. Everything else you can just erase. 9 means we're going to round up. So we're going to cross this off, and that 8 will become a 9. Knowing how to round correctly is really going to impact you on today's homework. There'll be some problems that look exactly the same. It's just, do you know how to round correctly? Looking at this first problem, we're going to be going back to quadratic formula. Remember, our quadratic formula is a way to solve for x. And we first want to find out what our a, b, and c are. Those a, b's, and c's are the number in front of the variables, the letters. The a is 1, the b is 9, and the c is 5. Once we have this, we're going to plug into our formula. Do you remember your formula from yesterday? opposite of b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And we're just going to be replacing our letters with the ones we found above. So if the b is 9, this wants us to do the opposite of 9. So we're going to change that. Instead of putting a 9, we're going to do the opposite of 9, which is negative 9. Then here it says plug in b, which is 9. And then these are getting multiplied. So it says a, our a is 1, and then our c is 5, and then 2 times our a, which is 1. Once you have this written down, this is what I would want to see in your homework. When I say submit your homework, you may either send me pictures of this, or the other option is to send me pictures of your calculator screen. Let me find my calculator. Here it is. I have to go back and turn this. Hopefully it turns okay for you guys. We're going to do alpha y equals to set it up as a fraction. And we're going to enter it in as negative 9 plus the square root. Always use parentheses for your whatever's being squared, minus 4 times a times c, so 1 times 5, and in the bottom it's going to be 2 times 1. Now if we look at this, it is negative 0.5948. We want to decide how to round this. So I'm going to go back to my Notability, and I don't know, I hope it turns my screens for you and you weren't looking at that upside down, I can't tell. If I write down what we had, they told us x equals negative 0.0594, and it goes on, has more. What we need is just, if they want us to the hundredths place, because that's what our homework will be, we want to look at the third number. This is our hundredths place, so we look at this 9. Everything after that we don't care about. I'm going to erase. The 9 means I'm going to round this up. The 5, so this 9 goes away, and this 5 will become a 6. Next, what we're going to do is go back to our calculator, and we're going to do the same problem, but this time we have to change it to a negative sign. So negative 9 minus the square root, and then we have our 9 squared minus 4 times a times c, and it's all going to be over 2 times 1. Looking at this, now we have to round. We want to round 2 decimal places, which is the hundredths place. And I don't know, like I said, I apologize if that was crooked. I don't know what I'm, how it videotapes. So this is negative 8.40512, and it keeps going on. If we want it to be 2 decimal places, that means we look at the 5 and we don't care about anything after. The 5 means I round up. I don't use the 5, but this 0 is going to go up to a 1. So those are our 2 answers. I'm going to scrunch this up, giving us a little bit more space. So our 2 answers are right here. Your homework is going to be in quizzes, and it is multiple choice, but you want to be very careful because they're going to have options to trick you with the rounding. This next one, remember that missing placeholder. We're missing our x term. If we're missing our x term, what do we put as our coefficient? That coefficient is going to be 0. So 2, 0, and negative 9. Now we're going to plug into our formula. I'm going to ask you guys to pause the video and see if you're able to plug it in yourself. If you want, you can always go ahead and write the formula first, giving yourself practice. I hope that you paused the video and tried to plug in. I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's opposite of b, plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. Now what we're going to do is type that into our calculator. If you need to, feel free, if it's easier, if you're on the iPad doing your homework, feel free to use your phone to download. So we have negative 0, plus or minus. We'll just do the plus. And then we have parentheses 0 squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2 times, oops. I have to try that again. I apologize. So 0 square root 0 squared minus 4 times A times C. And then down here is 2 times 2. That looks a little better. And while I'm on this screen, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm just going to go here and change it from a plus to a minus. Ooh, what did I do? Okay, so now I got my two answers. Those two answers are actually the same, they just have different signs. So once we practice rounding, we only have to round one time. So we will have x equals negative 2.12132, and it was a positive and a negative. Well, we want to do it to the hundredths place. So that means we're going to look at the 1, and we can erase everything else after. That 1 implies that we stay the same. So we have a positive 2.12, and then we also have a negative 2.12 as our two answers for our x. Your homework is to do 10 questions in the quizzes. If you're in Schoology, my Schoology isn't up and running. When you are in Schoology, if you click on the link to the homework, there's going to be 10 questions. You can either show me screenshots, take pictures of all the screenshots of your calculator, or what you can do is just show me on paper what your formula is when you plug in and what your answer is. And so you're going to have to do quizzes on the iPad, but then also take pictures or submit your work via Schoology. I need to be able to see your work, know that quiz is multiple choice, and to be very careful when you're